Okay, time for part 3, Cape Arago. You know, one of the things I wanted to tell you, like you've noticed already, sometimes the destination is not as exciting as the trip itself, because I think this trip is spectacular. Yet the actual point that we talked about, Cape Arago, wasn't as nearly as spectacular as the other stuff we've seen. And yet, on the way back, I think we're going to find the best part of all. Well, we've made it back to the gate. What do you think we'll find on the other side? I wonder if, I'll tell you, I certainly didn't guess a beautiful, beautiful garden here. In fact, it's a botanical garden. And you wander around, which you're perfectly welcome to do. You find this amazing area of flowers. This is part of Shore Acres. And it was owned by a guy named Lewis Simpson, who came to Coos Bay in the 1890s. His father was very, very rich. His father came from Maine to California in 1848. Came to the San Francisco area, 1848. So you can guess how he made his fortune. But you know what? I guessed wrong. He didn't make it. That was a trick question. That was a dirty trick on my part. He did not make his fortune in 1848 in gold. He actually did it by becoming a master shipbuilder. And his son, Lewis, in the 1890s, he started exploring the area around Coos Bay. And he started buying pieces of the coast until he had bought up this entire area that we've seen today. He built a mansion for his wife. Well, let's start looking. Let's stop talking. Let's start looking at the beautiful flowers. Those guys on the left are cosmos. And then we run into the giant dahlias, and the giant dahlias were just unbelievable. Now, this beautiful botanical garden had different flowers that were highlighted at different times of the year, depending on when that flower was going to do great. I happened to hit it right when the dahlias were spectacular. So I just wanted to show you some of the dahlias. You like that one with the kind of white highlights on the side? And then here's a group of them. I couldn't get enough of the dahlias. I like those guys. They look like orange bursts. And they certainly love this area. Some purple stripes in these magenta colored flowers. And then I took a picture of this guy. This guy is by no means a dahlia. In fact, I have no idea what this guy is. But it was a kind of a neat flower I wanted to show you. There were a whole bunch of different kind of flowers here. But like I say, there were different flowers that were really, really showcasing. And in my case, it was the dahlias. So right over there, you see a building. You say, wow, look at his mansion. It's true. He built a mansion in 1908 for his wife, Cassie. And the living room faced the ocean. So on those days when you didn't have a lot of fog, you probably had a pretty spectacular view. He had a Roman bath, swimming pool, 9 guest suites, ballroom. He ran cattle to Cape Arago. But things started turning badly for him in 1921. His wife passed, and the mansion burned down a little later. He remarried in 1922, but in 1929, the stock market crashed. And in 1932, he donated the Cape Arago part to the state of Oregon. And then he sold the rest in 1942. In 36, fire destroyed everything except a house and a gardener's cottage. So the mansion's not there anymore. That is not the mansion right there. But what it does have a very, very nice gift store right in there. And I wanted to tell you about that because I went into the gift store and I was kind of looking around to see if there was anything interesting. And one of the nice workers there said to me, he said, have you been to the rose garden? And to be honest, I hadn't even noticed the rose garden. It was hidden somewhere. He said, you need to go see the rose garden. It is right behind the Oriental Pond. So he went to go behind the Oriental Pond. You look there, and those, I can't tell if those are supposed to be herons or what, but those are fake. Those are not real herons. Those were sculptures. And he said it's behind that. And when you get there, make sure you smell the rose there called hot cocoa. I said, okay, I'll go smell the hot cocoa rose. Headed back there. This is South American monkey tree. Monkey puzzle, I should say. Monkey puzzle. And the texture was kind of neat. So I wanted to show that. But I got to the rose garden. And I gotta be honest with you, the rose garden looked like when it was really doing well, it was probably quite spectacular. It just seemed a little bit past its prime right now. So I went and took only one picture, but I did find the hot cocoa. And I went over the hot cocoa and I smelled it. And guess what it smelled like? Yep, it smelled just like hot cocoa. And you say, Doug, what did the hot cocoa rose look like? Well, I didn't take a picture. You know why? The reason I didn't take a picture was I didn't know something. I didn't know that I was allergic to hot cocoa roses, because no sooner did I smell it than I started sneezing and I could not stop. I didn't stop till I left this beautiful little garden here and got back out to the coast. That was a bit of bad luck, don't you think? Going, having a nice time smelling the roses, and it turns out the hot cocoa one is the one I'm allergic to, and that's the one where my nose started running and sneezing and all that. And got to tell you, it's not as much fun in the beautiful rose garden and the dahlias and all that if your nose is going crazy. But I wanted to go over one last thing before we leave this beautiful spot. And that is, when I was talking about all those dates, Lewis Simpson, all those dates this happened, everything was good, and then everything started falling apart. You might have noticed that he sold the rest of the area, the rest of his holdings here, to the state in 1942. And right away, you know what was happening in 1942, the big war. And I like to ask, which do you think the state was more concerned about? This nice flower garden or a war? Well, they had to take care of the war. And during that war, this place became, well, it fell into major disrepair. And now we are very lucky that the state, along with a huge volunteer group, has gone to all the work and put the whole place back together again as far as the botanical gardens. You know, the mansion's never going to be back, but the beautiful, beautiful grounds are back. And again, that's thanks to the state and thanks to a great team of volunteers. What's kind of weird, just so you know, I lucked out by being on the trail. They have an interesting thing there. If you walk through that back gate off the trail, that back gate, it's completely okay to do that, and it's free to go in. If you went in via the road, you have to pay admission, or at least a suggested donation going in the other gate. So I picked the right gate, at least for a cheapskate like me. Anyway, let's head back out to the coast and maybe my nose will repair itself. So I wonder what all the people thought of me just there with my runny nose and sneezing because I was allergic to the hot cocoa. But it did smell like a hot cocoa. I got here, and now we're going to head back. We're going to head back to where we started. Couple last looks of how pretty it is up here on this foggy, foggy day. We come to my favorite picture. This was the picture I liked. You can say, well, it's not particularly spectacular, but I like this picture a lot because it shows what it really was like when I was there. And I think a true personality of what the coast was like. It had the ocean. It had this beautiful bay coming in here. You see the black all from all the lava rock that's created this wonderful spot that we're in. The bluffs that we walked along the entire time, and then above the bluffs are those trees shrouded in the mist. Makes it look kind of mysterious as you look out there. Of course, I went a little further, and there's our friend waiting for us again. Our friend, the seals. So just a couple pictures, because I like seals. There they are. It was kind of nice seeing them still kicking back on a day like today. And that guy goes and says, and then this guy, he's looking at something, but then he decides, you know what? I'm just going to take my nap. Okay. One last look to the north. We're heading home. One last look at where we've been with all that neat rock down there. And one last look at the shore. How pretty the water is. Well, we're almost back. But wait, we're at that spot I mentioned we'd come back here again. Here's that little, what would you call, fence, whatever, to make sure that people didn't walk off the edge, because this was kind of a dangerous spot. And I show this because where I'm going to take my next picture, where you're going to see my next picture, is from that point out there on the opposite side of the gorge, up on top of that bluff, is where I'm taking the next picture, looking back at this fence. And you can see the fence out there, and I see something brown between the fence and the cliff. And yes, you are right. It's a little deer. And I have to tell you, it made me really nervous. Here I am almost done with the hike, and I got really nervous because I said, well, how am I going to walk past the deer? Maybe I'm a little paranoid, but I was thinking, my gosh, I don't want to scare her, have her take a wrong step, and next thing you know, she crashes off the side of the cliff. So I had to go around very, very carefully so I wouldn't startle this little girl. And I went around the corner, and wait a second. There's two of them. There she is in the background, and her little brother is in the foreground. You can just barely see his little antlers just starting to grow, and they, like always, they saw me when I came around the bend. So now, what I'm going to have to do, because like I say, there's a cliff just to the left. I'm gonna very carefully go around to the right. That's the way the trail goes, and then it loops back to the left. I'm gonna go very, very slowly so I don't spook them. He said, Doug, I don't like you here. So actually the sister'd already gone into the forest, and they both went out there together. And that was kind of a nice way to finish our trip to Cape Arago. Well, thank you very, very much for coming. I look forward to seeing you again.